The other one is downfalls.
The increase in crime drew an immense amount of unwanted negative attention from both the media and local and federal police. Tragic stories of the deaths of innocent bystanders and young gang members were reported on a daily basis. To end the rivalry, Rayful met with members of the Creditors organization at a local high school near the Howard University campus. The two groups were forced to come to a truce. The unwanted attention from the police threatened both the organization's business and its members. As a member of the Edmond organization, however, Zanville fell under the watchful eye of the federal authorities. After attempting to sell cocaine to an undercover DEA agent, Zanville was arrested on December 19, 1988, in the underground parking lot of Phillips Restaurant on the Southwest waterfront.
She was arrested at a restaurant in Southwest Washington, D.C. after distributing a quantity of cocaine to an undercover federal agent. She obtained the cocaine from Rayful, but this was her own distribution activity.
Zanville testified when she was busted last December by the FBI. Rayful Edmond was not the first person agents asked her about. His name was the second one that came up, she said. The prosecutors and judge have refused to let the identity of the first name be revealed. In his cross-examination today, Attorney Leonard Long contrasted for the jury the difference in circumstances for Zanville and the defendants. Long saying while Zanville admits selling at least 7.5 kilos of cocaine, she still has 7 mink coats, currently owns or leases a Mercedes, a Porsche, and a Subaru, still has her house, and the government has given her $12,000 in relocation expenses. Zanville indicated, however, her possessions did not make her happy.
Zanville has admitted to her role in a cocaine conspiracy and is now in protective custody.
With Rayful being unaware of Zanville's arrest, and in exchange for her freedom, Zanville agreed to become an informant for the federal authorities that were investigating the Edmond organization.
Well, a number of associates of Rayful had been arrested and apprehended, and during interviews they were pointing fingers at Rayful, and some of them had gone before the authorities.
The prosecution contends pig Latin was used during telephone conversations to disguise alleged drug activity.
With the organization now under heavy surveillance, the arrest of carriers, lieutenants, and street dealers became commonplace. The arrest led to new information, which led to police search warrants. The scene was too hot for Rayful, as he was forced to cut off more and more associates, and he decided to lay low.
A few people used to be where they talk about the people coming, and he be like, yeah, we going to jail, playing the ball. I said, man, how you play, how you play like this, man? So man, ain't nothing, ain't nothing we can do. They come and say, I ain't never did nothing, I ain't never sold nothing. Ain't nobody gonna say they got nothing from me. I said, so I used to talk.
But Ray will always just saying little shit like, bro, like you say, for father dudes getting money, like whatever status their money was on, he would make jokes like, you won't make it to the feds, you know what I'm saying? They won't come and get you. You'll do your time over to jail. You know what I'm saying? When they come and get me, it's gonna be bigger than life.
And he always say, man, I'm a Fed nigga anyway. If I go to jail, I'm going straight to the Fed. I ain't going to penitentiary. I ain't no Lord nigga. That's how he used to say. I ain't no Lord nigga. We Fed niggas. But he was always like a joke.
Rayful on many occasions said that if the police don't catch me with drugs in my hand, then they will never have a case against me. He had no understanding of conspiracy laws. He had no understanding of the government's methods of investigation, methods of prosecution.
When the reality of it came, like in the late part of 88, beginning part of 89, when it came close to reality, I'm saying, I think it kind of hit him, but he got more quiet and, more, he wasn't as gleeful as he was once, or most playful. So he was more serious because the reality was they was in his business. You know what I'm saying? And the funny thing about it, we all thought it was just his business they was in.
For Edmond, things were tense. By arresting low and intermediate level members of the Edmond organization, the FBI was able to accumulate a substantial amount of incriminating information on the organization and its members. With this information, the FBI gained the authority to tap the home phones of Rayful's grandmother and several of his closest associates. After being arrested, Zanville agreed to cooperate with the FBI to help bring down Edmond. Zanville began to wear a wire and agreed to record her phone conversations.
After she was arrested, Ray Zanville quickly decided to be a cooperating source for the government. She acted as an informant, she wore a wire, she made consensually recorded telephone calls to various people, and she acquired evidence for the government.
Ray was on his trail because there were people talking, like they said, the streets be talking. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's like everybody that was a policeman, not a policeman at heart. You know what I'm saying? Everybody that's selling drugs, not a hustler at heart.
At one instance, I went into the house and I saw two white guys, and I thought to myself, like, damn, he got white people on the payroll too, but they look like those ordinary guys. Like I said, I knew he had Zanville, but these two guys I didn't know. And part of my other job was going to identify people and come back and report who was in the house and all that. And one of them happened to be a captain, and one was a lieutenant. I guess they would tell them when the jump outs were in the area, and not just them, other police officers would do it too.
Rayful showed up twice, when I scheduled an appointment with Rayful to talk some police business and discuss a case. He showed up twice in a limousine with his limo driver, a stretch limo, and got out and had some of his buddies on the corner carry the groceries into his mom's house. And then him and I talked and took care of what we needed to.
More recently, 5D has become controversial following today's Washington Post article that reported the 5th District Station is the focus of much speculation about possible information leaks to the Rayful Edmond organization.
A lot of people brought him a lot of information, you know what I'm saying? Indirectly and directly, you know what I'm saying? Lawyers, you know what I'm saying? People catching cases that was in courts that's talking to the police investigating them. It was coming from all ends, so it was coming from so many directions. It had to be the truth, you know what I'm saying? It's a one thing when you hear from a girl or hear from somebody and they say such and such this and such and such that, and you don't hear no more about it. Then you hear from 5 or 6 different personalities in different walks of life, and there got to be some truth to it, you know what I'm saying? So, and this thing, he started, and eventually they started making it known. They started making it known they was following, so he could actually see it.
Our group was looking for Rayful Edmond, and we couldn't find him for like a whole month. And all of a sudden, this police officer calls him, and he just shows up, so they can talk to him. And this was kind of, it's not unheard of, because I know he paid a lot of police to do a lot of stuff. I've seen police get Rolex watches, $250,000. I've seen a lot of stuff dealing with him and just how much power he had.
ATF contacted me. They had lost the tail on Rayful. They were tailing him, and they lost him. They didn't know where he was. I happened to have, at the time, Rayful's home number, his cell number, his pager number. I gave him a call to him. I wanted to meet him for lunch, and we met at a fast food restaurant. We were supposed to meet at one place, but 3 minutes before we were supposed to meet at that place, he changed the meeting location a block away. It kind of threw ATF off. But they were able to pick the tail up, but they only kept the tail for another hour or so before he lost them again.
He had a couple of police officers that gave him good information that allowed him to stay 2 steps ahead of the DEA, FBI, and MPD. But what he didn't figure was people in his own organization would have the DEA and FBI catch up with him by snitching. That was basically his downfall.
With Rayful coming to the realization that the feds were close, he and a few of his close associates began to sell off some of their assets to avoid having them seized by the authorities. By distancing himself from a few of his associates, Rayful was able to frustrate the efforts of the federal investigators. The feds grew frustrated as their investigation slowed to a standstill. Although Rayful's name came up in many conversations, there was no concrete evidence directly linking Rayful to the cocaine business. Desperate, the federal authorities turned to Zanville for assistance in getting the final pieces of evidence. The authorities instructed Zanville to begin questioning family members and associates about how Rayful first got started in the business. Such a conversation would directly implicate Rayful's involvement in the drug business, leaving no doubt as to whether or not he was the man in charge.
Definitely, they was following me so much. One night we was out. I think we was on our way home. I think he had a little apartment over Maryland somewhere. We was on our way home. It was about like 4 o'clock in the morning. We was riding in the Benz, and they pulled us over. And they got out. They was talking to him like a gentleman. He got out of the car. I think he had some money in the car. If I'm not mistaken, I think he had like $4,000 or $5,000. They took the money. And I was like, man, you don't let them take the money, man. You ain't, by me not really going. He was like, man, you don't let them take the money. He was like, they can have it. I don't know what it was behind, but he was like, ain't nothing they can have.
And he knew that, that they was on to him hard because when he come out of restaurants or come out of clubs, you'll see the fans taking a picture. Or when you go to a shop in a store that you was loyal to, when you come back the next time, they might say, look, man, the people asking what you spent, questions about you. So he knew it was a reality.
Like in '89, when the heat started coming down on him, we knew because he used to tell us, point out cars that that's a police following him, and he was always just tell us he gonna leave to go to Mexico. Y'all, I want y'all to go with me and things like that, But he didn't really think it was that serious, so I don't think that's why he left.
He wanted to go to University of New Mexico, pay his way to school, play basketball, and just run away from the whole situation.
That type of criminal enterprise that Rayful was involved in, and you have the power and the connections that Rayful had, it becomes very difficult, I believe, to separate yourself from that enterprise and try to go into something else.
But I think at that time it was just so far, they were so far to our business that they probably wouldn't even allow them to do that. They would probably came and got him, So we talked about a lot of times during those times, he was, afraid of the unexpected, not really afraid that he'd get locked up, but just not knowing.
On March 4th, 1989, the federal investigators finally got what they needed. The evidence they uncovered was stronger than anything they could have hoped for. It was a conversation between Zanville and Rayful's mother. On the evening of March 3rd, 1989, Zanville met with Rayful's mother for dinner at Pier 7 restaurant on the Southwest waterfront. During the meal, Zanville, who was wearing a wire, manipulated Rayful's mother into talking about Rayful's beginning in the drug game.
And there were tapes of wiretaps and hidden microphones in which the defendants allegedly told on themselves. In one, Edmond's own mother was recorded by Zanville talking about young Rayful's start in the drug business and the path that led to his downfall.
She was a mom to me, but also she was a personal friend to me. So when things, selling drugs, like I said before, so many things go wrong. People get killed. People lose their jobs, people get strung out, and whenever things go wrong or things don't go right in my life, she was my friend. I go talk to her and tell her about all these things, about what's going on with me, and she knew about all that. And she ended up telling all the things that I told her to an informant on a wiretap.
Conversation that Zanville had with his mom, it fucked him up, because due to the fact you got a woman that he trusted, he put a lot of trust in, talking to his mom, someone his ultimate probably as far as his love go, and to hear the things that she was, they was talking about, it kind of hurt him, and I remember distinctly him saying when he was locked up that his mother really was blowing a lot of smoke and making things look bigger than they was, because she probably was just overstruck about the whole situation going over, about how he was getting money and doing a lot of things. So he was kind of upset about that because he was like, a lot of things was fabricated and blown up. But it sounds so true because it's coming from his mom.
During the last month, when I think this is the time he knew they was coming, but didn't know what day or what week they were coming. He was kind of getting. I think he was just blowing money. You know what I'm saying? He was like, I know they're coming, but I don't know when, so I'm gonna take this money.
Murphy brought an ex-college basketball player, Clarence Green, to testify to Edmond's character. Green said Edmond was not a dope dealer, but was a gambler who won as much as $45,000 a night.
Mostly every day, every night, always gamble all the time. That was the main thing I was on every day and every night.
And you can make enough money gambling to buy...
On some nights, you might win $40,000 to $50,000 gambling.
I mean, with the money he was gambling, I mean, what if he'd been winning 20 or 30,000? But he didn't kill him. I mean, I watched him make bets, stupid bets. He was just, it was just like a joke. But I can see him, he was concerned because he didn't want to go home no more at night.
It's like the heat was like stepping up more. It was just like it was coming to us in abundance. That man, the people coming to get y'all any day. They kicking y'all name. They doing this, they doing that. But like I said that time, we always just assumed that it was really Ray that they was targeting.
There were years and years and years that they were trying to get him at all levels, and it wasn't until finally a number of people in its inner circle finally just gave it up.
On April 15th, 1989, with the final missing piece in place, the FBI was able to obtain a warrant for the arrest of Rayful Edmond and 29 of his closest associates. In a sweep that lasted over the course of 2 days, the FBI finally got who they wanted. Rayful Edmond, the king of cocaine.
I need to talk to you in the emergency. Yes. All of us. Wherever. Here's the other piece of alcohol walking around the house.
It was income tax weekend, April 15th and 16th, when the FBI, the DEA, and the D.C. police swept out and swept in Rayful Edmond III and a couple dozen of his family members, friends, and associates.
The government alerted the media before Rayful and the other members of the alleged conspiracy were arrested, and they were filmed being taken into custody, and they were filmed being transported to court.
It was just a big case in that they had spent years and years and years of investigation on, and every time Rayful had slipped through and they were having difficulties, so when they were able to get the indictments down and get everything sealed, I think they wanted to generate as much publicity as they can.
So they pulled me up. I'm saying, Channel 9, CNN, 5, so I'm saying to myself, the night I get locked up, some big shit happening. You know what I'm saying? But I ain't never really even fathomed that I was the big shit, you know what I'm saying? But the police ran up to me and said, which one is that? They said, that's Kirk Bones. They said, how old is he? So I said, I'm 18. And they was like, he old enough. But I don't even know. I would say the juvenile number, they wouldn't have put me on camera. That's how naive I was to the law. So when they said he old enough, they bum rushed me, flashed me up, you know, put me all across the TV, all over the country. The next thing you know, one time I woke up for court, the marshals, everybody was like, you're a movie star, you're all over TV, you're a big movie star. So I was like, this shit must be big. So that's how that happened.
The government from the very beginning made the media coverage so intense.
This is probably the single most significant law enforcement operation directed at a cocaine trafficking organization here in the District of Columbia that we have seen for a long time.
That it was absolutely impossible for Rayful or any of the other members of the alleged conspiracy to receive fair trials.
U.S. Attorney Jay Stevens acknowledges prosecutors want to make an example of Edmond.
We're sending a message to the young people of this community that people like those individuals under indictment here are not the kind of role models that you should have, because these are the kind of people that will end up spending the rest of their life in prison.
I was named by the government as an unindicted co-conspirator, and for that reason I was not able to represent Rayful or any of the other co-defendants during the large conspiracy trial.
And we knew if Art Reynolds showed up down there, then it was usually paid for by Rayful, or Rayful had something to do with him handling the case. So, and we had a lot of dealings with Art.
The government felt that because I had represented so many people who ended up being charged in the conspiracy, that I must have had a closer relationship with them than just that of an attorney-client.
The trial was it was a circus, you know what I'm saying? It was for real. It was all premeditated on their part, for real. They should have been charged with premeditation.
The trial alone was almost like a circus. I mean, you talking about bulletproof glass, people coming up the back escalator. Even one time when I first went to testify, they had the sheet around me to walk me through the hall so nobody would see me until I got on the stand.
The trial has gotten off to a very slow start, but picked up some speed today with 8 witnesses on and off the stand, although there have been no major revelations so far.
In my heart, it was just like it was a no-win situation. You know what I'm saying? It was real ugly. And then they clamored, and they put in the courtroom. They said, you know, the jurors kept them unknown. You know what I'm saying? And the bulletproof glass. Then the helicopters taking you back and forth to court.
The jury was seated behind a bulletproof glass screen. They used an anonymous jury panel.
And for the first time in Washington District Court history, the case will be decided by what's being called an anonymous jury,
so that no one would be able to know the names and addresses of the jurors.
The jury will hear the trial under unprecedented security, protected by bulletproof glass and addressed by assigned numbers instead of their names.
Edmond was so powerful and so dangerous. The jury in his trial had to sit behind bulletproof glass, their identities hidden from the public for their own safety. New development tonight in the trial of alleged cocaine kingpin Rayful Edmond. The judge is barring the public from the trial starting next week to help protect the jury.
They had metal detectors that you had to go through in order to enter the courtroom for any spectators or witnesses or anyone else. the news media would show on a daily basis Rayful and one or more of his co-defendants being transported to court by helicopter from the Quantico Marine Base where they were being housed, as though he really was a danger to national security rather than just a young individual who was selling drugs and was being tried for that.
You know what I'm saying? They made it seem like that it was a bunch of animals basically they done got from Africa and brought them over into the United States.
As a result, there was no way that Rayful could get a fair trial. There was no way that any of the other defendants could get a fair trial in that case, with all of the media.
A firebomb was thrown into the home of the witness's mother.
In fact, the house of the family of one witness was firebombed after her testimony. Another key witness has refused to testify.
Another scheduled witness was shot dead. Still another refused to testify after she was shot and injured. Officials have formed a task force for witness protection, including the city's police chief, the DEA, FBI, and federal marshals.
Firebombing of the witness's relative's home last weekend, that there is some concern that Edmond is receiving a lot of visitors, or had been receiving a lot of visitors at the D.C. jail, and perhaps even might be giving directives from jail.
Another thing that touched me when they were saying in trial how he was having people killed. I knew that for a fact that wasn't him. It was a difference from basketball to being in the streets. But even when we played ball and got into confrontation, he was always the mediator. And that ain't what we here for, man, this and that. I don't heard him say in the streets when guys was trying to take advantage of him. Man, I ain't worried about that, man. They can have that little bit of money. That money ain't gonna hurt me. I ain't thinking about that shit. Let them go ahead. So I knew for a fact, they just, they really trying to bring him down.
And with all of the tools that the government used to make it clear that this was a dangerous individual and that these were dangerous people who had to be convicted and taken off the street. That was the first time that bulletproof glass courtroom had been used.
Prosecution relied heavily on testimony from former alleged Edmond confidants, including Alta Ray Zanville, Royal Brooks, and James Big Boy Mathis.
When the trial was going on, we better get a chance to do a lot of talk. We was over D.C. jail. They ended up moving him when the trial went on to Quantico. You know what I'm saying? The Marine Barracks, and, just to make the heighteners of it even more bigger than, they was a danger to even the jail.
In addition, officials are apparently getting concerned about what kind of power Rayful Edmond might be wielding from jail, because as of Sunday, Rayful Edmond was moved out of the D.C. jail.
Authorities say they had to move Edmond out of the local jail and into a more secure facility because he was getting special VIP treatment from the guards.
He always said, man, I'm a Fed nigga anyway. If I go to jail, I'm going straight to the Fed. I ain't going to no penitentiary. I ain't no Lorton niggas. I'm going to eat steak. I'm going to eat steak. So y'all eating that Lorton food.
One Corrections Department official said that some of the inmates and staffers here at the D.C. jail are treating Rayful Edmond like a godfather. He says on one occasion, someone managed to smuggle a pizza into Edmond's cell. And they don't make pizza here at the D.C. jail.
You know what I'm saying? So we didn't really get a chance to talk much as we did when he was still over the jail. When he was over the jail, we talked about it every day because he knew that Roy and Ray Zanville was, going against him. You know what I'm saying? So he was real hurt, you know what I'm saying, especially about Roy, and because like I say, he felt like that was like a brother to him, and they really, really hurt him. But like he had to deal with the hand the car he was dealt.
Before I got on the stand, all the evidence that the prosecution had presented to the jury, Rayful and they were back there high-fiving and laughing and said, man, they don't have nothing on us.
I was fortunate to have a good attorney, Mr. Thomas Abernathy. He used to reiterate that to me every day in the city. That, you know what I'm saying? Y'all gonna get punished. Y'all ain't here laughing. Y'all ain't here playing. Y'all through, man. They been talking about this in the courtroom for 2 years before they had me got y'all, man. I said, man, y'all not gonna win this case.
So when I got up on the stand, because I had an inside look at how he did stuff and how he moved in the clubs he went to and the places where he laundered money like this store in Georgetown, they looked like they shrunk like into little ants. When I got up on it, you could just see all the air come out of it. Because they knew that that they sold me drugs.
Today's testimony was the most damaging so far because it directly and personally ties Rayful Edmond III to big drug sales. This was the day Edmond's attorney, William Murphy, had been waiting for. The day to try to discredit the government's star witness out to Ray Zanville in cross-examination. The 48-year-old Zanville has admitted her role in the conspiracy and is currently in protective custody.
I think he found out real early in the game that she was a star witness against us. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I think he found out soon the indictment was that, that she was a star witness against him and all that. You know what I'm saying? But like they say, he was real, fucked up about it because only he knew what he was doing with her. You know what I'm saying? So we really couldn't feel his pain on that. He didn't elaborate what she had him fucked up at. But everybody was just feeling like the majority of the case, we was like doing our own thing. Like the police and the court system made it like it was one big crew.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Barry Tapp said it was a family ring and the only way to join was through blood, marriage, or close friendship.
Prosecutors had charged that Edmond and members of his family controlled a whole system of cocaine traffickers, with 125 or more people employed as enforcers, lieutenants who supplied and protected couriers and street dealers, and so-called mules who shuttled vast amounts of money to Los Angeles to buy and bring back cocaine.
But it really wasn't no one big crew. You know what I'm saying? A lot of those dudes on the case, we might have said 5 or 6 things to each other on the streets. You know what I'm saying? So they built it to make like it was a big organization that was ran corporately styled and all that, but it was basically like contractors for real, people freelancing, doing their own thing. You know what I'm saying? So the way so a lot of people really wasn't talking about what they got or what they think they got because there was really no trust factor even amongst us because we didn't have no bond with each other.
Rayful Edmond arrived for the verdict under heavy security, shackled and transported by helicopter from the nearby military base.
One of the largest and longest and surely most unusual drug cases in the history of the District of Columbia has come to an end with a rousing victory for the government.
Rayful Edmond III and 10 co-defendants had stood silently in the courtroom as the verdicts were read. The 25-year-old Edmond closed his eyes momentarily and looked at the floor.
Rayful Edmond III has been found guilty of engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise, conspiracy to violate narcotics laws, 1 count of interstate travel in aid of racketeering, 1 count of employing a minor for illegal purposes, and 4 counts of using telephone facilities for illegal purposes. All 10 other co-defendants were found guilty as well, found guilty of conspiracy, including his brother, his sister, his cousin, his aunt, 2 brothers-in-law, and assorted friends. They were found guilty of conspiracy to violate drug laws.
After the trial and everything, when everybody was convicted going on during their time, you could see by the rate of crime going up the effect that he had on the street. When he was on the street, so many dudes was getting money, it was more harmony, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of people was trying to live the same way they was living, they couldn't live that way. So, they did whatever tax they did to survive, you know what I'm saying? Whether that be kidnapping, robbing, extorting, or whatever. But that's one of the reasons that DC really got on the chain like that.
The verdict in this case, I think, represents a victory for all the people of the District of Columbia, those who live here, who work here, and who visit here.
Because of the bulletproof glass, because of the anonymous jury system where there would be no accountability on the part of the jurors, because of the number of marshals who were ringing the bell of the courtroom, all of that created a climate that he felt was going to make it difficult for him to get a fair trial.
I used to always think they gotta catch you with shit, or guy had you serving somebody or getting this from somebody. I ain't never think he'd go like that. I ain't think they was gonna hold. I thought it was gonna be like 1 or 2 days, he'd be out on bond. He never came back up.
Let me say to the young people of this community who look to the leader of this organization as their role model for the flashy, fast life, well, they will now see him through bars for the rest of his life.
And we kept thinking back to something we saw a few weeks ago, earlier this month, when Edmond was taken out of the courtroom to jail for the last time. He walked confidently toward the police helicopter, turned and mouthed these words. Look closely. Rayful Edmond said, "I'll be back."